Welcome to the Pardes channel. Today, we explain Numbers chapter 26 in a clear and simple way, step by step. You know, on the surface, reading a census might sound, well, a little dry, right? But trust me, this chapter is anything but. We are actually looking at a massive, pivotal transition in the text.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with the context, where we actually are in the story. Then we'll go through the detailed counting of the tribes, the new rules for dividing up the land, the separate Levite census, the passing of the old generation, and wrap it all up with some recap and practical life lessons. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Welcome and Context. Picture this. We are in the plains of Moab, right by the Jordan River, looking straight across at Jericho. And the timing here is absolutely crucial. This happens immediately after a devastating plague has just swept through the Israelite camp. It's a literal turning point. These aren't just the same people who left Egypt anymore. They are standing right on the edge of the Promised Land, and before taking that massive next step, they really need to reorganize and figure out exactly who is left to take the charge.
Picking it up in verses 1 through 4, God gives a direct command to Moses and to Eleazar the priest, who, remember, is the son of the late Aaron. The command? Take a comprehensive census. But it's not just a general head count. The parameters are highly specific. Count the men aged 20 and older, organizing them by their ancestral families. Now, why 20 and up? Because simply put, these are the guys who are able to serve in the army. They're gearing up to enter Canaan, and that means they need to be completely militarily ready. It's a highly strategic count. They're officially transitioning from being desert wanderers into the conquerors of a brand new land.
Section 2. Counting the tribes. Let's actually look at the census data now, tribe by tribe. What's wild here is that the text doesn't just give us numbers. It buries these incredible historical callbacks right in the middle of the statistics. We kick things off in verses 5 through 18. First up is Reuben, Israel's firstborn, coming in at 43,730 men. Next is Simeon with 22,200, and then Gad with 40,500. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, actually, right in the middle of counting Reuben, the text just hits pause. It brings up Reuben's descendants, specifically a guy named Eliab, and his sons Nemuel, Dathan, and Abiram. And if those last two names ring a bell, it's because they bring up some seriously dark history.
Yeah, verses 9 through 11 completely stop the census to remind us of Korah's rebellion. It vividly recounts how Dathan and Abiram teamed up with Korah to literally challenge Moses and Aaron's authority. The text holds nothing back. It reminds us how the earth split open and swallowed them whole, while a fire devoured their 250 followers. It's listed right here in the census as a permanent warning sign. But there's also this fascinating little detail in verse 11. It casually notes that the line of Korah did not completely die out. His descendants actually survived. It's like a tiny glimmer of divine mercy tucked right into the middle of a spreadsheet.
Moving right along through verses 19 to 27, we hit Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Now, Judah is absolutely massive, 76,500 men, by far the largest tribe. But again, the text throws in a quick historical footnote recalling the early deaths of Judah's sons, and Onan, way back in the land of Canaan. It's just making sure the lineage is perfectly accurate. Then we have Issachar at 64,300 and Zebulun at 65,000. The structure is just relentless, meticulously recording everything clan by clan.
In verses 28 through 37, we get to the sons of Joseph, who are now elevated to full tribe status, Manasseh with 52,700 and Ephraim with 32,500. But inside Manasseh's genealogy, we hit another absolutely critical pause. Verse 33 introduces a man named Zelophehad, and the text specifically points out that he had 0 sons, but he did have 5 daughters. It even names them all: Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. Guys, in the ancient world where they primarily only counted men for the draft and for passing down property, naming these women is a huge deal. This isn't just trivia. This is literally setting the stage for some groundbreaking land inheritance laws in the very next chapter. This census is essentially building the foundation of Israel's legal system.
To round out the 12 tribes in verses 38 through 50, we count Benjamin at 45,600, Dan looking super strong at 64,400, Asher at 53,400, and Naphtali at 45,400. And a quick shout out to the tribe of Asher. The text uniquely mentions a daughter named Sarah here, proving once again that these individual family members truly matter to the historical record. They are leaving absolutely no one out of this new nation's official registry.
So, we finally get the grand total in verse 51. After all that exhaustive counting, the total number of Israelite men ready for war is exactly 601,730. I mean, just stop and think about that number for a second. Despite 40 long years of wandering in a brutal desert, despite surviving devastating plagues, and despite all the internal rebellions that wiped out thousands, the nation hasn't just barely scraped by. They are numerically massive, strong, and completely ready to take on the future.
Section 3. Dividing the land. So the census is done. Now the text shifts gears entirely. God tells Moses exactly what this massive data set is actually for. They weren't just counting for the fun of it. This data is the literal blueprint for how they are going to allocate the real estate of Canaan.
In verses 53 and 54, God lays down a principle of strict equity. The rule for carving up the land is totally simple and completely logical. You divide it based on the number of names in the census. Larger tribes, they get a proportionally larger chunk of land. Smaller tribes, they get a smaller chunk. It is a completely fair, objective distribution based solely on the hard data they literally just finished collecting.
But here's where it gets really brilliant, blending human fairness with divine will. While the size of the territory is strictly based on the population math, verses 55 and 56 say that the specific location for each tribe will be decided by drawing lots. It's the perfect system. The math guarantees nobody gets shortchanged on size while the divine lot picks the location. This effectively neutralizes any complaining or jealousy over who gets the beachfront property or the best farmland, right? God makes the final call.
Section 4. The Levite Census. Moving into verses 57 through 62, the focus shifts to the tribe of Levi, the priests, the ones who take care of the tabernacle. And they are counted using an entirely different set of rules. Remember how the other tribes were counted from 20 years old specifically for the military? Well, the Levites are counted from just 1 month old and up. The text lists their main clans, Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. It also drops in the specific lineage for Moses and Aaron, naming their parents Amram and Jochebed. And then, once again, the text forces us to look backward. It solemnly reminds us of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, who tragically died when they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord. It's wild how, even in a routine census, the text insists on hammering home these vital lessons about obedience and holiness. You literally cannot escape the history here.
Verse 62 gives us the final tally for the male Levites, 23,000. It also explicitly spells out exactly why they had to be counted completely separately. The Levites are intentionally excluded from the main census because they don't get any physical land inheritance like the other Israelites do. Their full-time job is the spiritual service of the nation. As the text reminds us, God himself is their inheritance.
Section 5. The Old Generation Passes. As we approach the end of the chapter in verses 63 through 65, we hit this incredibly poignant realization that kind of takes your breath away after all that counting.
The text directly compares this brand new census here in the plains of Moab with the very first census they took 40 years earlier at Sinai. And the realization? God's decree from the wilderness wandering has been fulfilled to the letter. Because that older generation refused to enter the land when the spies first came back, God declared they would pass away in the desert. And the numbers prove it with absolute finality. Not a single man from the original Sinai census survived to be counted this second time, except for exactly 2 guys, Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies. God's word, both his severe judgment and his faithful promise, proved completely 100% true.
Section 6. Recap and Life Lessons. Okay, let's take a step back. We just went through a lot of names and a lot of numbers. But what are the simple ideas and practical lessons we can actually draw from this? Because clearly, this is way more than an ancient spreadsheet. It's a profound lesson on preparation, consequence, and legacy.
The key takeaways from the text are super clear. First, we see the absolute necessity of strict organization when you're preparing a new generation for a huge task. Second, we see the undeniable reality of consequences for rebellion. The text didn't shy away from it. The stories of Dathan, Abiram, Nadab, and Abihu are woven right into the raw data. And third, the absolute certainty of God's word. The old, doubting generation was completely replaced, just as he said, while the faithful remnant was perfectly preserved.
So how do we apply this? Well, in our own lives, we learn that before we step into major transitions, we need to meticulously prepare and take stock of what we have. We also learn the massive value of building fair, logical systems in our communities, much like that brilliant land allocation method. And maybe most importantly, we learn to carry the lessons of our past, the big wins and the bitter failures, forward with us as guides for our future.
So I want to leave you with this to chew on. As you look at the goals and the metaphorical promised lands ahead of you in your own life, How are you going to structure, organize, and prepare yourself for that next big transition?
Are you taking an honest account of where you are right now so you can successfully move forward? Thank you for learning with us. If this helped you understand the chapter better, like, subscribe, and join us for the next chapter.